Entering 2026, the global pharmaceutical market generates over $1.3 trillion in annual revenue. But that massive industrial scale is colliding with an impending $400 billion patent cliff as exclusive rights to major drugs expire. This intense economic pressure is occurring as AI and genomics integrate into the research process, compressing early discovery timelines by up to 40% and mapping disease targets at the level of individual DNA. Historically, the industry was divided by a strict binary: small chemical molecules on one side and large complex biologics on the other. That division is collapsing. We are entering an era of modality convergence, where hybrid therapies are becoming the standard. To understand where this convergence is taking global healthcare, we need a reliable data source. The 2025 Human Medicines Report from the European Medicines Agency provides exactly that. It acts as a high-fidelity scan of international research and development trends. The report visualizes the agency's exact output for the year. It details 104 positive opinions, 7 negative opinions, and 22 withdrawn applications. Look closely. 41 of those approvals are biosimilars. That's the highest number ever recorded in a single year. By deconstructing these specific 104 approvals and analyzing the regulatory pathways that enabled them, we can map the exact trajectory of global health equity and market access for the next decade. Within that record block of 41 biosimilars, 23 of them contain denosumab, a monoclonal antibody used to treat bone loss and skeletal conditions in endocrinology. These highly similar biologic copies serve a specific economic function. They act as critical financial release valves for national healthcare systems that are buckling under the weight of expensive originator biologic therapies. While Europe efficiently approves these cost-saving alternatives, the United States market remains severely bottlenecked. The primary barrier in the U.S. is rarely the scientific complexity of the drug. It is intellectual property law. Manufacturers deploy patent thicketing. Instead of a single primary patent, they file dozens of secondary patents, creating a complex legal web that deters competition. The financial damage is quantifiable. Delayed competition for 3 blockbuster drugs generated an estimated $167 billion in excess spending. Entering 2026, the U.S. is deploying aggressive countermeasures. The Inflation Reduction Act is being utilized to rein in pricing abuses, while the Biosimilar Red Tape Elimination Act proposes removing separate interchangeability studies to accelerate substitution at the pharmacy counter. Third parties are also utilizing the Patent Trial and Appeal Board to systematically invalidate obvious secondary patents, forcing manufacturers to negotiate settlements that allow biosimilars into the market. Rapid scientific innovation yields no clinical value if legal firewalls prevent those breakthroughs from translating into actual patient access and healthcare savings. Pivoting back to the EMA data, the edge of therapeutic innovation is found within the 38 new active substances and the 4 advanced therapy medicinal products approved in 2025. Advanced therapy medicinal products, or ATMPs, are medicines based on active human genes, tissues, or cells rather than synthesized chemical compounds. Consider Zemcel Pro, an oncology ATMP. It utilizes unexpanded umbilical cord cells to treat patients with severe blood cancers who require a stem cell transplant but have no suitable donor available. In dermatology, the approval of Vyjuvek proves that direct gene editing has made the leap from laboratory theory to real-world clinical reality. It treats dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa by directly delivering functional copies of the COL71 gene to patient wounds, addressing the specific mutation that causes the skin to blister. This entire sector of targeted therapeutics is being accelerated by artificial intelligence. AI workflows are currently reducing early target discovery and hit identification timelines by up to 40%. While biosimilars maintain the existing standard of care for chronic disease, new R&D investment is increasingly focused on precision-engineered therapies matched to a patient's unique DNA. This shift creates a structural dilemma for 2026. How do regulatory agencies govern individualized ATMPs and AI-designed molecules that do not fit the rigid requirements of traditional Phase 1 through Phase 4 clinical trials? The EMA now uses an adaptive framework balancing data against market speed. Prime designation optimized data for 6 drugs. Accelerated assessments and conditional approvals allowed 11 drugs early launch when benefits outweighed risks. Lastly, exceptional circumstances approved 2 drugs where comprehensive data gathering was impossible. These pathways do not lower the safety bar. They simply shift the burden of proof from massive pre-market clinical trials to continuous, rigorous post-market surveillance. Regulators are actively trading upfront clinical certainty for real-world agility. They are ensuring that patients with terminal diseases are not left waiting decades for administrative checkboxes to be cleared. We see this agility applied to the 16 orphan medicines approved in 2025. The EU provides specific incentives, like extended market exclusivity, to spur research into rare diseases that would otherwise lack commercial viability. Elevidys is a direct result of this framework. It acts as a targeted gene therapy to treat the lethal, progressive muscle deterioration caused by Duchenne muscular dystrophy. However, this push for speed is strictly bounded. The CHMP issued 7 negative opinions last year, establishing that the regulatory firewall remains firmly intact. The core criteria for those rejections is simple. The clinical efficacy shown in the data failed to justify the safety profile. A severe unmet medical need does not bypass safety standards. Those 7 rejections are just as vital to the ecosystem as the 104 approvals. They prove the system remains anchored by scientific rigor, protecting the public from the hype of unproven biotechnology. In an era of adaptive pathways, regulatory approval marks the transition into continuous real-world data collection. This process is known as pharmacovigilance. Industry and regulators share an obligation to monitor adverse effects and optimize how a drug is utilized across global populations after it hits the market. This monitoring frequently expands access. In 2025, the EMA granted 89 extensions of indication. 40 of those were for pediatric use, expanding access to highly vulnerable populations based on verified real-world safety profiles. Pharmacovigilance also identifies when to restrict usage. The EMA proactively removed certain indications for azithromycin to optimize its use and combat the escalating global crisis of antimicrobial resistance. Rapid safety interventions are also standard protocol. New warnings were quickly issued for caspofungin to protect critically ill patients receiving continuous renal replacement therapy. Pharmacovigilance operates as the essential safety net of modern medicine. It effectively turns every global prescription into an ongoing, real-time clinical trial. The rigor of this European regulatory framework extends its reach well beyond the continent. Through the EU M4All pathway, the agency evaluates medicines intended strictly for use outside the European Union. Under this pathway, they approved combining ivermectin and albendazole. This specifically targets lymphatic filariasis, a neglected tropical disease ravaging populations in the global south. They also approved an indication extension for the Dapivirian vaginal ring, lowering the approved age to 16. This provides a crucial, empowering tool for HIV-1 prevention in high-risk global demographics. These EMA evaluations connect directly to international procurement. The clinical data validated in Europe regularly dictates which therapies are included on the World Health Organization's model list of essential medicines. A single regulatory approval in Europe cascades outward. It sets global procurement standards, alters public health infrastructure, and determines survival rates in developing nations worldwide. The 2025 EMA report demonstrates that precision medicine and advanced cell therapies are moving from research theory into clinical reality. Regulatory agencies have successfully modernized in tandem. They have built the adaptive, agile frameworks necessary to evaluate AI-discovered molecules and direct genomic editing without compromising public safety. With the scientific and regulatory hurdles cleared, the remaining obstacle is the economic friction of patent evergreening and aggressive market monopolies. We currently possess the technology to cure diseases at the DNA level, yet we struggle to navigate the legal thickets required to deliver those cures affordably. The future of medicine will not be decided solely in the laboratory. It will be decided on the battleground of intellectual property law. True progress requires a unified ecosystem where scientific innovation and equitable market access operate as one.